Hey, welcome to the Digital Insurance Agent Podcast. I am so glad you've chosen to join us today. And with me is Rachel McDougall. She is the founder and CEO of PEOMG. Rachel, glad to have you with us today.
Thanks, Carl. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive into a topic that I think probably a lot of our listeners are not super familiar with. And we'll begin with just really the origins of PEOMG. And if you can share the story behind launching your company and really the gap you saw in the market, and just give us a little background story there, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, love to. Yeah, PEOMG, we launched the company in St. Louis about a year and a half ago, 18 months ago, and started as all good businesses do, right? As an idea at a kitchen table. So four of us partners got together and did see a gap in the marketplace and thought, how do we solve this? And so kind of grew it from there. But, really the gap that we saw, and we'll get into, is just small business owners, right, that are wearing a ton of different hats, trying to run their agencies, trying to, live out their business and just kind of drowning in too many things. So we thought, how do we take this big piece of the business, this HR, um, infrastructure, and just make it simple?
Excellent. So, what personal or professional experiences in your background, help shape your understanding of what a small business owner really needs to thrive? What gave you that perspective?
Yeah, such a great question. So many experiences over the course of my career, but at one point I was an insurance agent. I worked for an insurance agency, and we were pretty small. It was probably about eight of us in there. And, everybody is wearing different hats. Everybody's rushing around and, trying to sell and bring on new clients, trying to maintain our current clients, and just seeing that small business firsthand was first off impactful. As well, I was also part of a startup in 2015 and saw that business grow. And really, the theme of what I keep seeing is just that nobody starts a small business to run payroll and to learn compliance and to, get employee benefits and have to know, compliance in 10 different states, right? People start a business because they're passionate about something. And so oftentimes businesses fail, more often than not, because your dilution of focus just, becomes a bit overwhelming. So I saw that firsthand. I've seen that in businesses that I work with. That's just been a reoccurring theme of helping small businesses grow.
Yeah, excellent. For a lot of our listeners, whether they're an agency owner or producer, this, idea of outsourcing uh, HR functions might seem, maybe even feel a little risky.
Mhm.
What helps you build trust in this PEO model? Because it may be a really new concept for somebody that's listening.
Yeah, twofold on that front. One, I've been part of an organization that I wasn't the founder of. I was in a sales role, and we were utilizing a PEO for the business. So I've used that PEO in the sense of being an employee whose business is being run by a PEO, and I saw a lot of benefits there. It was, not a large company, and we had some HR issues, some that could have turned into lawsuits and things like that, and employees that needed to at some point had to be let go due to some things that happened. And the PEO was able to step in and really manage that process in a very professional manner, with no risk to the small business owner. And so I've seen it in that perspective, just really bring a lot of value and benefit to the small business owner. And then as well, my founding partner has about 19 years of experience in the PEO space. So he and I and our other two partners really work to just fully understand the space, and really grow to trust it. And I guess thirdly, if I can say one more, is oftentimes, right, it's a small business. So does the HR or the office manager, right, is that person really capable of managing the HR solutions, or is it better outsourced to an expert in the space?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So often there's one person who is tasked with posting to social media, being the HR person,
Right,
answering phones. Yeah, they're kind of the catch-all person.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So let's talk a little more about what exactly a PEO is, why an insurance agency owner, would care or how it really fits. So let's kind of start with this, thought. A lot of agents have never been exposed to this concept. They've never worked with a PEO. So give us kind of the basic, entry level definition. What is a PEO? What does it actually do? And kind of start us there.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to. And we do a lot of education in this space because a lot of business owners have never heard of it before. So PEO stands for Professional Employer Organization, and it's a particular type of HR outsourcing model where through a very unique IRS certified relationship, it's called co-employment, right? The PEO really takes on all things HR for a small to medium-sized business. So that's everything from payroll administration, managing compliance, interfacing with government agencies, delivering HR best practices around, employee relationship and different opportunities, and then also helping organizations really find ways to motivate, develop, reward, attract, retain great talent. And then they also have a very unique model when it comes to how they manage insurance, particularly though around employee benefits. So through this co-employment relationship, the PEO really establishes a very large economy of scale. And through that, really three things happen on the employee benefit side. One is that it really just reduces the cost of the health insurance program for the small business owner. So it gives you more competitive rates versus what a company of, let's say, 5 employees, even 25 or 105 employees could find on their own. Secondly, it really expands their benefit package. So it really makes it look more like a Fortune 1000 benefit plan with different plan options, ancillaries, 401ks, dental, vision, things of that nature. So they just have a much more robust benefit plan. So they're able to attract and retain really top tier talent. And then thirdly, it just stabilizes the cost of the employee benefits because that buying power also mirrors as a risk pool. So that small business, with a handful of employees can spread their claims across a much larger pool. So ultimately, a PEO would say that, they typically see mid to single digits on the increases year over year of the benefits, as opposed to, a more common 12, 15, or even 25% increase. So that really coupled with delivering tools, technology, resources to the business owner takes that HR piece off of their plate so the business owner can really focus on their core business, right? Why they started it.
Okay. Yeah, I think you kind of hit into the pain points, that you help solve. Juggling the hiring, the compliance, the payroll. What are some other pain points that you really help alleviate in this process?
Yeah, so our process, and I can give you a bit an insight of what our process actually does. So we're not a PEO. We don't do any of those things I just described. We help our clients navigate and find that right PEO partner. So the pain point that we really solve for is, okay, I need employee benefits. I need more HR infrastructure. I need tracking and time and technology, time and attendance and, applicant tracking for hiring. Like I need all these pieces. And instead of me, business owner, going out and saying, okay, I'm going to take employee benefits here, broker, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get workers' comp, I'm going to hire fractional HR. Our company helps you decipher of the 900 PEOs and the different HR models out there, what's the best solution for you?
Good. And so really what you're doing is taking that legwork out. You're helping to speed up that process, that filtering, all of those types of things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, agents get pitched on a lot of services. Why should they trust you specifically around those things? What does PEOMG really bring to the table that sets you apart from somebody else that might be approaching them?
Yeah, absolutely. There are, like I said, about 900 PEOs out there. There's hundreds of PEO brokers in essence out there. So our model and approach is very different from really anything else in the marketplace. So oftentimes a PEO broker will sit down with you and say, hey, here's 15 different PEOs and here's the numbers. They call it spreadsheeting, right? Here's all the numbers. What do you want to do? And at the end of the day, they don't really care because they're going to get paid either way. So our approach is very different. It's very consultative in nature. So what we do is we actually sit down with a business owner, an agency owner, and we say, hey, what's your business model? How do you think about your people? What are your needs and priorities around HR? And then we deliver a recommendation of just one PEO or combination of HR outsourced services, one that really is the right fit for them, one that mirrors and matches their needs and priorities and really does align with their culture. And then from there, we take them through a very curated evaluation of that PEO, where we, in essence, get to move from sitting across from them in the room and we get to sit alongside of them. And we ask the questions of that PEO that we know to ask from our collective 19 years of experience in the space. So they get to hear those answers and determine really for themselves if this is a right fit for them or not. And then when they turn to us and say, hey, we like this, we want to move forward, then we actually oversee the whole environment for them. We configure it, we negotiate it to its most cost-effective level, and then run on through the implementation of the PEO. And then from there, our support and services really never go away. So we remain truly as a strategic advisor to that relationship, in essence, kind of sitting on top of it, to make sure that every service level expectation is being met, that they're seeing an ROI being achieved on that investment, and then as well, kind of managing future events like renewals or service level adjustments that might need to occur as their organization's size, needs, changes happen across the business. And so that's the one big piece, is that we have a lot of experience. We've been doing this and we understand and how to navigate the questions to ask in the buying process. But secondly, two of the things that are really most important about our model is that for everything that we do, that initial consultation, ongoing support, recommendation, all that, our services are completely free to the business owner. So much like a broker, we're paid on the back end by the PEO or the outsourced HR organization that we've chosen to work with. And what we've done there that really is truly unique, and this is, I'm going to get to the point of your question, this is the thing that makes us the most unique. What we've done there is we've worked with each one of our partner organizations, which is right now 16, what we'd consider best in class PEOs and organizations. And we've worked with all of them to make our compensation exactly the same across the board. So regardless of who we recommend or what combination of services we leverage for them, it's solely around the fit for our client and not about the financial implications for us. So that's why, of the PEO brokers out there that you'll ever find, nobody is operating on that business model.
That's good. So as you're looking at a particular, business, and you're going to have businesses that are early stage, you're going to have businesses that are well established and scaling, regional businesses, all of those things. How do you tailor your recommendations based on the stage in the life cycle or stage of growth that that business is in? What are some of the things that you're looking at to determine who's the best fit for them as far as their PEO goes?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are a lot of factors that go into it, right? One is going to be kind of their growth trajectory, right? Are they wanting to scale fast? We want to make sure that the PEO we implement for them today is going to be the PEO that can grow with them over the next, 4, 7, 10 years. So we look at a couple different things with that. We really actually do a pretty in-depth dive as far as the size and the organizational needs and things like that. But to kind of boil it down, PEOs really offer 4 different kind of services that we would continuum service basically. One is what we consider transactional HR, which would be, payroll, compliance, payroll administration, technology, things like that. Second would be more in the HR risk kind of mitigation services, right? When they need support around wrongful termination or discrimination or anything like that in the HR world. Third is going to be benefits, right? Bringing on employee benefits for the first time or negotiating what they currently have. And then fourth would be what we consider transformational HR, very robust recruiting, performance management, training, things like that. And so those kind of 4 different facets we look at, and we might have a small company that says, hey, I don't need the Cadillac of PEOs. I need a Honda Accord, right? I need transformational HR and I need some benefits, right? Or, hey, I've got a really tricky compliance. I've got employees in 10 different states and I really need help managing this piece of the puzzle and this piece of the puzzle. So we're kind of going to look at these different facets of the business, and really where the business is going, to help find that best partner for them.
Excellent. So in your, working with clients, you have any, success stories that just kind of stand out? Your favorite case study, if you will, that you could share with us that it's just been, you know, where you really were able to come in and make a difference for a business.
Yeah. So many, it's hard to narrow it down. We've got one client who he's kind of more in a fractional CEO role. I think he's used our services to bring on 3 different organizations, and he just keeps coming back because it just streamlines his process. But one in particular, more in the professional services space, I'm thinking about, actually located in Vegas, and they were part of a larger entity, and they were rolling out to a smaller entity. And so they needed immediate infrastructure, right? Because they were kind of moving out with a group of people and had some key employees that were going to go with them. And so they didn't have the time to stand up, great employee benefits to attract these people in 401ks and manage compliance there in Vegas. They've got, employees all across the country. And so for them, we were able to stand that up in, 30 days, as opposed to them having to go to the marketplace and figure out, how do we do this on our own? How do we get this stood up for ourselves?
Yeah, excellent. And then, as far as just, besides cost savings, what other kinds of, peace of mind or savings issues can that owner really expect to encounter in moving into this kind of model?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, definitely cost savings is there for sure. I would say the biggest thing is just opportunity cost around their time to evaluate the model that they're looking for. Like I said, there's about 900 PEOs out there, and good or bad, their sales processes are not always great. And as every good sales rep is doing their job, they believe they're the right fit. So they might tend to square peg around hole sometimes. And so with us, just the opportunity to really evaluate that field for you. There's such buying fatigue around trying to understand their different business models and the different services they offer and how they bill, and then the sales process itself. I would say the largest thing that a business owner could expect to see is just an absolute return on their time. And, in order to access an advisor group like this that has such amount of time in the industry at no cost is really a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, I think one of the things that's important, and you can speak to this, is if you're scaling, especially if you're going to scale regionally or
Mhm.
multi-state, now you're dealing with different state laws and
Right.
and all of those kinds of things, and making sure you're compliant in each state. Can you kind of speak to that, and even just really the benefits of working, within the PEO framework of having to navigate those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, it's huge. It's, I would say, one of the main reasons why people not work with a PEO. I'd say of our clients, probably 85% of them have employees in multi-state, in multiple states. And that is largely just due to the fact that the PEO, they're experts in that, right? They're taking on all the risk and the liability for the company. So, they're looking at compliance laws, they're looking at how the laws are changing on a literal hourly, daily basis to make sure that they're in compliance, which makes the business owner in compliance. So when you come on board with a PEO, they have expertise, and they know the taxes and the implications in California versus Washington versus New York. And so they actually set it all up for you. So you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to learn the laws, because they're fully taking on and managing that risk, and they understand the laws backwards and forwards.
Excellent. And then, Rachel, for somebody who's listening today and they're kind of wondering, am I a good candidate for this?
Mhm.
What's kind of the sweet spot for somebody to really begin exploring whether or not a PEO is the right fit for them? Is there a place where you're too small, and is there a place where you're too big?
Yeah, no, it's good question. So neither relate to both, neither too small nor too big. You can come into a PEO relationship, 3, 4 employees, pretty small. And usually at that inflection point, right, you say, huh, we've hired our friends and family. We need to offer employee benefits, because now our next key hire, we've got to hire some key people, and they need to be great. We want to attract and retain really top tier talent. And so we need great benefits, right? That's an inflection point where you're not too small, but you really need uh, that fuel to growth. And then on the larger end, we do have clients that are in the even up to, I think 288 is our largest client. That's large for the PEO universe. Usually that sweet spot is, you got 10 employees, you got 25 employees, or you're hitting that threshold of 50 employees, or you have to offer benefits and you need to have a more robust plan. The other thing I think about with smaller agencies is, typically it starts with the gal who's running the front desk and also helping out with this and also doing some social media is also the one who's now running payroll, and now she has to manage benefits. And so that's an inflection point where we say, kind of exposed to a lot of risk here. We don't really have anybody that really understands the space fully, but we're also not ready to hire a CHRO. That's not going to be our next hire.
Mhm.
So to fractionally outsource that to the PEO is a really great time.
Yeah, excellent. And then if somebody wants to, start exploring whether PEO is a good fit for them, what would be the next best step for them to take?
Yeah, I mean, I would say obviously reach out to us. We can help you navigate that. And you could definitely go down a really deep rabbit hole with ChatGPT and Google on finding one yourself. But we offer, like I said, these services free of charge to our clients. So kind of a no risk scenario of reaching out and having a conversation and, seeing how we can help.
Excellent. And where is the best way for them to get
Yeah.
in touch with you and get started in that process?
Yeah, a couple different places. Obviously, PEOMG.com is our website. You can easily go on there, read a little bit about us, easily book on the calendar a time to connect with somebody. Um, LinkedIn is great too. Got a big presence on LinkedIn and a little bit on Instagram. But yeah, just PEOMG.com, book a meeting with somebody, and it might be me or probably my co-founder or one of somebody on the team, and just a easy conversation.
Fantastic. And Rachel, any final thoughts you have for our audience today that you'd want to leave them with?
Um, no, I would just say, take the leap. If you're a little tired of, if you look at our website, it says you didn't start a business to, lose sleep at night. You didn't start a business to run payroll. You didn't start a business to do all these different things, right? So if you'd like to get that sorted out, have a little bit better sleep at night, know your people are taken care of, yeah, then reach out.
Fantastic. Rachel, thanks for joining us today. And to the rest of our audience, thank you for tuning in to the Digital Insurance Agent. We look forward to having you again on our next episode.
Thanks, Carl. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Do it.